Lucy Sheriff.
And how long have you been a journalist?
I have been a journalist for 13 years, I think.
Wow. Okay. And you're talking to me from Los Angeles?
I am indeed.
Tell me a little bit about this podcast. When does it hit and how many parts is it?
It's 6 episodes. It drops on the 23rd of July. So anyone who is a subscriber to Pushkin Plus, which is the studio making the podcast, they will get all of the episodes at once. And then us normal folk will get an episode a week,
And it's 6 parts?
6 parts.
Okay,
Yes.
I've heard four of them, I guess. Well, what has it been like researching this case for 4 years? And what have you come away with at the end of it?
As I'm sure you know, it has been a whirlwind and a roller coaster of craziness. I started following the story in 2020 when 5 people went missing in Idyllwild, and I made it my mission to find out what had happened to every single one of them. And I did. And the only woman that I couldn't find out what had happened to her was Dia. So that's how I started following Dia's story. And since then, I have had hours and hours and hours of phone calls with people like Keith Harper, with Dia's son, Clinton Abrams, with her neighbors, her friends, her family, and it has kind of taken over my life a little bit. So I'm quite relieved that this reporting is finally going to make it out into the world. I don't think I'm going to stop following the story because it doesn't really end, or at least there's no conclusion until next year.
Well, as you know from researching this case, you end up, and you mentioned this in your podcast, you end up with two narratives, right? One from Keith Harper and one from Clinton Abrams. And
Yes.
it can get frustrating after a while, right?
Yes. Yes, it does. And I mean, certainly I began to think I was going crazy because you have these two very strong characters and they're so convinced that their narrative is the one that's true. And you're sort of you end up in the middle and you're trying to tread this line of, as a journalist, I need to be objective and unbiased. And then you're also dealing with these two men who are so convinced that their story is the true story.
Well, I've been following this case too for a while, and what happens is you start keep getting these little tidbits of information, but I guess the problem is you never get the smoking gun that tells you what happened, right?
Yeah. And I think from what I have gathered, although they've never let me interview them on the record, I think the police, that's where the police are at as well. They don't have the smoking gun, which is why there's been no arrest. Obviously they conducted the raid on the ranch a couple of years ago, and really, I'm sure you were. I was on the edge of my seat, like, oh my gosh, this is it. They're finally gonna find something, and they're gonna make an arrest, and it's gonna end, and Dia is finally gonna have some semblance of justice, but it's just so frustrating because I know that there are people who I've spoken to who know way more than they're telling me.
Let's talk about the most damning evidence against Harper. I guess it comes down to him leaving the state 2 days after Dia went missing, and also some previous relationships he's had, brushes with the law, but also some. I've spoken to a lot of women who are in relationships with him, long term relationships, and they have some pretty damning, although not a smoking gun. They seem to have some pretty strong opinions about Harper too.
Mm. Yeah, so I think that's another thing as well is even if somebody has a pattern of behavior, it doesn't make them guilty. And I've spoken to some of those women as well. And, even with everything that happened with Jodie Newkirk, even her death, when the autopsy came out, it was not a conclusive death. The coroner ruled it was undetermined. And Alberto Loureiro, the investigator on Dia's case, was quoted in Jodie's coroner report saying that these are there were suspicious circumstances. So you have this cloud of suspicion that seems to follow Keith Harper around. And the fact that he is really unable to account for his whereabouts when she went missing is extremely concerning. The main thing, one of the main things that I found speaking to various people is his alibi is very shaky. And I wonder if the police had interviewed everybody who was at the ranch for that search, whether we would have seen an arrest by now. Because the problematic and the concerning thing that I found is people I've spoken to, it took the cops several years to interview them. And they were there at the ranch the day after Dia went missing. And that's been a, I've had several people say that to me. I don't understand why the police didn't come and speak to me. I was there and maybe I could have helped. Maybe I knew something. And you do wonder whether if there had been more action from the police side, whether Dia would have been found or whether at least there would have been an arrest.
Well, I mean, I've spoken to women also who were in relationships with Harper who still haven't been interviewed by the police. Do you think the police have dropped the ball on this case?
I think that from from what I have learned, I think they could have done more. I also think in their defense, we have to remember what was going on when she went missing. And we were right in the middle of the pandemic. And we were right in the middle of a lot of protests. So I'm sure that they were very under-resourced. But yes, I do think they could have done more.
And I guess it comes down to either Clinton's side of the story or Harper's side of the story. The suspected motive in both of those cases, if you're looking at either of those as a suspect, is money, right?
Yes, money definitely seems to be the driving factor and the thread that runs through this entire thing. Um, it's there was so much going on with her trust, and there was so much legal battles going on because, as you know, Dia was in a battle with her two children over her dead husband's estate, which was worth millions and millions of dollars. Um, so there was a lot to gain from her going missing for all parties involved. And I've spoken to Clinton about this, and I would imagine it's a very, very bitter pill to swallow that this man, Keith Harper, is going to get half of Dia's estate, and her own children are going to get 25% each. And it's it's such a strange agreement because it really feels like they're being pitted against each other, because if anybody is found to be involved in her disappearance, they get nothing. So it's like this race, and they've got a year left to try and pin it on each other, which obviously is driving their narratives.
Let me ask you about Diana Fetter. What do you make of her? And one of the most perplexing things that happens in this case is after Dia goes missing, Diana and another woman go back onto the property and either open her truck or break into her truck, take a gun, and according to Diana Fetter, they were in there to take dog food. Uh, they wanted to find dog food in the truck, and the dog was with Keith Harper out of state. You know,
Yeah,
did you ever ask her about that by any chance?
I did. I did. And she didn't give me a direct answer. Um, I think that that is one of the patterns. That's one of the issues, the main issues I've had with so many people I've spoken to. They will never give you a direct answer. You can ask as many direct questions as you want, and it's so hard to get a straight answer out of anybody. And there are so many little episodes like what you just mentioned that do not make sense. And I can't figure out if they're red herrings or if they're this smoking gun and we just don't realize that that's the smoking gun because there's so many of them.
Do you think they'll ever find Dia's remains?
Well, we still don't know for sure if she's definitely dead. I think, yes, I do think this case will be solved because everybody's talking. Everybody's still happy to talk about it. And so I do think at some point somebody's going to say something.
What's your personal opinion of the psychics involved in this?
Like,
Do you believe in psychics or do you not believe in psychics?
well, I live in LA, so I think I am more partial to believing in psychics than maybe the everyday person, despite the fact that I'm British. I do think that there is some merit to using psychics. I think that it kind of defeats the purpose of using them if one of the main unofficial suspects is has access to all the information. So Keith Harper has seen everything that the psychics have come up with. So it sort of defeats the purpose because if they're saying, oh, Dia's body is buried here, and Keith Harper knows what they're saying, you know, it's even if the police do come and search that location, the likelihood is they're not going to find anything.
All right. Well, why should people listen to your podcast? What are they going to come away with? And it does seem to be a pretty good review and deep dive into this story, you know.
I think people should listen because, you know, perhaps they're able to figure something out that we've missed. Perhaps they're able to put together all these interviews and spot something. And there is a tips hotline for Dia. So if they come up with anything or they come out with anything after listening to the podcast, they can contact the hotline. But it's also, you know, it's also just an interesting story. If they live in California, it's an interesting story to listen to. I think it's a good story about power struggles and manipulation. And I think it's a really good story about how somebody presents themselves and how different they can really be under the surface.